Good day, everyone. We're here with Dr. Brian Clement of the Hippocrates Institute. Hippocrates has been around for about 55 years, and now 41 years Brian has been running the Institute as the director. He tours about 150 days a year, is that correct?
Yes.
Spreading the good word, and what I believe is part of a movement that is going to sweep across the nation, hopefully, and save all of us. I've just got a few questions for Brian today. Brian, it's been a long day. You've been traveling, and you just gave a great lecture here in Portland, Oregon. So I'm going to keep these questions brief. I'm hopefully the answers won't be too brief. Number one, could you educate our viewers on some of the most common myths associated with living food lifestyle? Specifically, where will I get my protein if I don't have meat? Where will I get my calcium for my bones if I don't drink milk? And where will I get my vitamins and minerals?
Well, all three of those questions were precipitated by marketers out of Madison Avenue from the meat and dairy industry, the food industries. Even in formal education, as nutritional scientists, we're given the same propaganda. And so let's address each of those. The first answer is quite simple. All life on this planet, every drop of life, including you, comes from the sun. And how it is captured on this planet is through something called the photosynthesis process. And that's on the leaf of a plant. So all life is captured on the leaf of a plant. Now, would it make a little bit of sense to the listeners today to consume a fresh, raw leaf of a plant if you want the most protein? Because all protein is there. It's manufactured through photosynthesis, every drop of it. The most vitamins, the most minerals, the most essential fatty acids. Spinach has a great source of essential fatty acids. It's 19% protein, as an example. And we've missed that because an industry for vested interest convinced you should let an animal eat the leaf, you then slaughter the animal, cook the animal, and you get nutrition. Completely off track, people. Our organization for 55 years has placed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a plant-based diet, and not one suffer a protein deficiency. But many, many meat eaters that we test with our medical department do so. They have the deficiencies. Number two, dairy food precipitated by the dairy industry. There is not a creature on this earth that drinks milk after they wean. Not a creature. Now, if somebody just thinks a little bit, you don't have to be a genius, you don't have to be a scientist, just a little bit. Do you think that nature meant that we should get on our knees and drink from the breast of a cow? Well, if so, I guess milk consumption from a cow is a good thing for you. Or how about a goat? Should we get next to a goat and drink from its breast? Well, if you think so, then go right ahead. But if you have a little bit of reality and common sense, you'd realize that the only milk we should ever consume, and not enough of us do long enough, is mother's milk. And after approximately a 2-year period, we no longer need that. And not only does that give your immune system the antibodies it needs permanently to make you stronger, healthier, and maintain vitality, but it also bonds with the mother. Too few women today breastfeed for the prerequisite 2 years to have all of that happen. So milk consumption, other than mother's milk, is not a human experience. And just like the largest creatures on the earth get their calcium from greens, you need to, as I have. When we train Olympic athletes and we test thousands of people, we don't find calcium deficiencies in people. And as a matter of fact, let's be candid, even with junk food diets, there's not many calcium deficiencies. It's just a sham. The calcium supplements that are on the market, sadly, are mostly oyster shells that are ground up, that are very good at giving you hardening of the arteries, or second, chalk, which is very good at giving you cancer.
Thank you. Next question that I get all the time is, if you were to take someone eating a typical American diet who wants to start this process of eating living foods, how should they approach this lifestyle to ensure their success? What would you recommend as the first step?
Well, number one, there's two types of people. People who are fighting a disease. They have to adopt this lifestyle rapidly. What we're best known for over the last half century is people coming to us with late-stage disease and bringing about their own recovery. So with a person like that, they need to immediately consider coming to a place like Hippocrates. If that's not possible, getting our books that with a blueprint show you what we've learned over half a century. And in your communities globally now, there are groups of people who have been through Hippocrates and they get together periodically. Other people who say, I want to improve my health, I want to fight the premature aging process, they can take the grace and time to read a book and to make the mistakes and do it over a 1 or 2 year period. And that's the majority of people. But I can't emphasize enough how important it would be to come to Hippocrates if you're fighting a disease. Or if you have the ability and the time and the desire to come there, even if you are a healthy individual.
Okay, another question. Can you help our viewers and fellow Americans understand by them choosing to live a vegan, live food lifestyle, not only will they feel better physically and emotionally, but they will be a part of a global movement that I believe is at the beginning, and that will also make a major impact on lowering our overall healthcare costs, which I believe are totally out of control.
Oh, well. There is no such thing as a healthcare system in this country. It's a disease care system that cannot work. It's not a model that can work economically. At the end of the day, most allopathic treatments do not remedy a problem. If anything, they veil a problem. And people, if they don't change their diet and lifestyle, that's a causative reason for these diseases, or the vast majority of diseases. How do we expect results? But let's get right to the core of it. Those of us who are legitimate and considering the warming of the planet, and there's not a legitimate person I know that do not know that that's real, know that 40% of that comes from meat and dairy consumption. It's not your automobile, not to say you should be having a gas guzzler, but the truth of the matter is all the cars and planes and trains and trucks on the planet only produce 17% of the gases in the atmosphere, where meat and dairy consumption produce 40%. Number two, there's a desert occurring now in our farmlands. In a current magazine in 2011, we have one of the leading authorities who address this and point out so very well that the Middle East was lush forest and farmlands at one point. And any of you that have met or been to the Middle East know that it's 100% a desert at this stage, other than little areas where they irrigated for farming. This is what America is doing now. We're destroying the strength of America. We were a farming nation, an agricultural nation. That's where we started, that's where our roots are from, and we are now systematically destroying it. And who's making it worse is big farm and the Monsantos of the world that are creating genetic farming so that farmers have to buy seeds every single year from them, and they have to be dependent upon them. And they are now producing, 40, 50 years ago, they used to produce 75 kilos of food from an acre. Now it's 150, and they anticipate in the next 25 years they're going to make it 500. And so with this level of pesticide, fungicide, herbicide, raping the soil, we're going to have a giant desert with no food to support the American public. And if people have any morals at all, even if you're unscrupulous, you hopefully have some morals and just don't know it. Stop killing animals and stop drinking their milk. I mean, it doesn't even make a brain sick person or a brain dead person not pause a minute and think about it. Many of you sitting here listening love dogs and cats and horse and everything else, but you never consider that you're 1 inch from eating an animal from doing this. I've raised 4 children. I, for more than 4 decades, haven't consumed any of that. I'm healthier in my 60s than I've ever been. I lift heavier weights than men half my age at the gym constantly. I never stop going, and I'm not an exception. I'm the rule. People who live on a normal, healthy lifestyle and diet, exercise, keep a positive attitude, we do not age the way the rest of the population does. So there's so many reasons. And if you claim you're a patriot, quit being a bigot. Wake up and realize you've got to change yourself. Don't expect somebody else to change things for you.
Thank you. I just want to point out to everyone that how I became to, or how I came to come to Hippocrates. A friend of mine got diagnosed with cancer. I grew up on a small hay and cattle farm over in eastern Oregon, where we raised Hereford cattle for meat production, and I hunted and fished. I would assume that I'm the typical American farm boy, if you would call it. I get called that a lot now that I live down here in the city of Portland. And simply a friend of mine got diagnosed with cancer, and that's why I'm sitting here tonight with Brian. He decided to go a different route. He didn't want to go through the chemo, he didn't want to go through the radiation and the drugs. The doctor gave him a death sentence and said, you have 6 to 14 years left to live if you do the chemo and the radiation and do this and that. We ended up at the Hippocrates Health Institute, thank God, because his wife, who had been going for years and is one of your longest alumnus, who had a baby at age 49, which is remarkable in itself. My friend Charles actually was a vegetarian, yet he contracted cancer, but we found out he was more of a junkie vegetarian. So he was taking these foods and cooking them, and he would eat carrots and celery, but he would dip them in ranch, and yes, he had cheese. And but he ended up getting this death sentence, and then we go to Hippocrates, and I went to support him. That was the only reason, and I was kind of interested in learning about grain drinks. I thought that was interesting. So then we went to your office, and you said to him, "Oh, leukemia. That's a mild cancer. You should be fine in a couple years," which is completely the opposite of what he got from allopathic medicine. And right now, it's been 4 months, and Charles is doing great. His blood work is great. He's down 165. Well, excuse me. He's down about 50 pounds. His blood pressure was 171 over 110. Now it's 100 over 60. His testosterone's up over 100 points. His blood looks great, and he feels great. And we believe that within maybe another year and a half, 2 years, he will be completely free of this cancer and be able to live a normal life. And when he came back and talked to his oncologist said, "Wow, this is great. If half of my patients had your results, I'd be out of business. I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up." Which blows my mind. Why isn't this guy taking out a notepad and saying, "Son, what are you doing? What are you eating?" More people need to know about this, but it was just like, "Oh well, oh swell, off you go. Good job for you." And I come back here, and after eating these living foods and my life, I lost 35 pounds myself just by osmosis, and I made a commitment to my friend to eat this way to support him. And now I tell him, I don't care if you eat this way or not, I'm going to continue. And so I go to this raw food community, and I say this with love, is that I think a lot of this, what you teach, is being buried, we talked about this earlier, and lost in this raw food communities, because a lot of these people that live this way are driving Volkswagen vans, no offense, granola eating, which you've pointed out is food mixing, which is not good. And and it's just a little weird for like this average person. I don't know what is average. We're all humans. So the problem is, I think the message is getting lost a lot. It's not into the mainstream media yet for a lot of reasons. But I want to help bring this out to everyone, let this know that this vegan living food lifestyle is for everyone, and that we need to take a look at it, because obviously what we're doing is not working as a society. I go around the grocery stores and I look around, and everybody's overweight. I do financial planning for a living, and these people come in to me, and they're not only broke financially, but they're broke physically, and so many people have diabetes and all this stuff, and they can't even afford basic medical coverage if they were to get in an auto accident. People are losing their coverage because of healthcare costs. So this is the answer. There's no doubt about it. If any of you out there are sick or wanting to feel better, go to the Hippocrates Institute's website. It's hippocrateshealthinstitute.org.
You better spell that for them.
Yeah. And you'll find it, and get plugged in. And don't believe everything you read or see. Find out for yourself. Thank you very much.